I know, I'm sorry.
Hey everyone, I don't know what that was. And welcome. You're really excited for today's episode, huh? You're
I'm feeling fired up. I don't know. I had a pretty good weekend, and I'm ready for uh, the week. I'm ready for the news. I'm ready to get out there and fight.
well,
I'm just
I
ready.
I got to tell you something. We've got some news. Welcome to the Blue Sedition podcast. I'm Nate Brady. He is
I'm Mike Smith, everybody.
that's who
Welcome to
he
Blue
is.
Sedition Podcast. We
Uh,
love having you here.
well, I wish we didn't have to be here. But my God, there's so much to talk about, and let's just dive right in because I think we've got a pretty big episode today. I want to start with some ridiculousness. Let's get the really silly shit out of the way. Not that it all isn't really silly shit, but this is some of it. What the hell am I
This is
looking
like
at?
this is like make believe stuff.
Yeah.
So if you're not for our listeners only, folk, Rep Ogles, I believe is his name, proposed a bill, a joint resolution bill, to amend the 22nd Amendment to
Uh-huh.
allow, it says Trump, but a president is the wording in the bill, to serve a third term. And then it goes into some specification about how it has to be non consecutive. So you can't run three in a row. You have to have two somewhere that aren't connected, and then you can run for a third. So it like specifically calls out like you can't run Obama because he won two in a row, but you can run Trump because he won one, lost one, won one, and then he can have his second in a row.
Okay, so it's saying you can serve two consecutive terms even if you've served like a disjointed. So
Yeah, and they
okay.
tried to make this argument in the past. Like after Trump won, they tried to make the argument, just sort of floating it on like Fox News and things, that the 22nd Amendment is already worded in a way that suggests like that Trump could run again because he didn't have consecutive terms. And that's, I think that most legal scholars wrote that off. They're like, that's just gibberish. There's no way that you could read the Constitution that way. And so this is to address that. They're going to try and amend the 22nd so that it can be interpreted as you can have a third term under these very specific uh, situations. What's odd is that I don't think anybody's actually dug into it because they laugh about it before they think about it too much. I don't know if this means that I could do like a Jerry Brown in California and be like, I'm the president, I lose my next election. I'm the president again. I lose the next election. I'm the president a third time. I lose the next election. I'm a president the fourth time.
Well,
Like, I don't know if
well that's interesting because what that kind of sets up is like a situation in Russia where maybe you could have like a handshake deal where okay,
Mhm.
I'm the president, you're the prime minister,
Right.
the special
We're going to be the
appointee of the president.
reactionary.
Yeah, and we just
Yeah, and
go back and forth.
it's a lot of it's still like conspiracy theory nonsense, right? Because I remember also reading, unfortunately, I think it was Matt Walsh who said this,
Oh,
but
I don't.
I know, I'm
Oh.
sorry, but he was like, the way we do this is before the midterms of his second year of his second presidency, Trump resigns as president, making
Okay,
J.D. Vance the sitting president,
sure.
and then they have Trump become the vice
Oh,
president,
Jesus Christ.
so that
I
he
mean,
didn't fill his second term, and then Vance would just like pretend he's not the president for. I mean, yeah, it's all
yeah,
ridiculous.
it's really stupid. I mean, Andy Ogles, whatever the fuck his stupid name is, he introduced this bill and then he said that Trump needed more time to reverse our nation's decline, which is hilarious because it's saying two things. One, it's saying I don't think you're gonna like how the country looks at the end of 4 years, and we're gonna try and
Yeah,
blame it on if Biden was so bad that it's still gonna be bad. And the other thing was it completely as you said when you introed this segment. This is so that any president, no, they just want their Lord and Savior to be able
yeah.
to serve at least one more term. But I've got probably good news for most people. I mean,
Okay.
I don't see the Big Mac Diet Coke loving president really making it much longer than this. Never mind 8 more years. Now,
Yeah.
it's true
I
only the
mean,
good die
he'll
young.
be what, 82 at the end of
At the end of this
at
term.
the end of this term.
Right. Now, that's not to say that should be the reason why you shouldn't care about this ridiculous proposal. Still
There
care
are other
about this.
reasons that you shouldn't care about this
Yeah.
particular proposal.
Yeah.
Not the least of which is this is an attempted amendment to the United States Constitution, which means you need, I think it's 2/3 in both chambers, the House and the Senate, to pass it, and then you need ratification from 38 states.
Yeah, it requires...
We're still arguing about the 28th Amendment. How are you going
Yeah,
to try and get
yeah,
this
yeah.
passed in this
No,
in
it's
this economy?
in this no, it wouldn't. It's never going to happen.
No,
And it's
no.
also important to say that this, I think, was proposed as a repeal of the 22nd and not like a new amendment itself. Like, oh, here's...
No, this is an amendment to the 22nd.
Oh, I thought it was a
requires
repeal.
an amendment itself.
Okay. Maybe there were previous...
No, because they need to keep it so that Obama doesn't get to run again. So they need to have the 22nd, but they want to have this like carve out so that Trump can run for a third one because he's a special little thing.
Okay.
He's a special little boy.
Yeah. I know there have been previous attempts to, I'm trying to do a quick search here. There have been previous attempts to repeal the 22nd. But yeah, you're not going to get 38 states to agree on this.
And I don't think any of those were like realistic attempts. I think they were just, hand jobs in the same way that this one is. This is just Andy trying to make sure that Trump knows that he's his best guy. Yeah, he's just...
Oh, okay. No, you really meant...
I meant it.
All right. I didn't know if you went in like hand waving or whatever. You actually meant...
No, I meant he's lit. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
No, this is just Rep. Ogles just saying like, hey, Trump, I'm your guy. I'm the most loyal and I'll do whatever it takes. And I'm going to follow the letter of the law, but I'm your guy.
Okay.
Because this is never going to get a vote. This isn't even going to go to vote because they don't have the numbers. No Democrat will vote for this. Not even John Fetterman will vote for this.
Well, you said no Democrat, so let's be fair. John Fetterman could vote for this, and that wouldn't fall under your...
But that's why I included him in his own special card out there, because I don't think that John Fetterman will vote.
I would like to do...
I don't think
with
Mitch
you...
McConnell will vote for this.
Let's transition from this got what it deserved, which was about 6 minutes of airtime, and then we can move on from this. But while we're on the subject of Fetterman, you and I have talked about this, I think. Maybe we talked about it on the pod last week, just briefly. But first of all, what an asshole. But let's have a bet live on air right here. When do you think, or I guess let's start with, do you think Fetterman's going to become an independent? I think Fetterman's going to switch party.
I had that inkling because of recent history with Kirsten Sinema. Obviously, she went from Democrat to
Did she actually change her
Arizona.
Party affiliation? I don't remember that.
She would have if she hadn't actually officially ended her career. She's like, I'm not running again.
Sure.
But no, she came out and said that she's an independent. She's not going to caucus with the Democrats anymore. Okay. And I just don't think I think it was paperwork that they didn't do.
Okay.
But I was thinking the same thing about Fetterman, where I'm like, I think he's up in the midterm, right? Or maybe he's got 2 more years. Maybe he comes up in 28. But in either case, I'm thinking that either this year or next year, early, he's going to switch to either an independent or more likely at this point, given his district his state is a Republican. I think he's more palatable to a Republican base than Democrats at this point, given that he's basically just a con artist.
He is basically just a con artist. I think we agree. So I believe he's going to... I believe he's going to be a Republican. It's going to be interesting. Let's find out.
Hey, really quick, top of your head, hot take. Fetterman or Dr. Oz would have been better right now.
Well, okay, I have to say Fetterman, but I think I'm supposed to say it doesn't matter.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, right. I mean, obviously Fetterman, we want the guy with the D next to his name, but obviously that is proving to mean absolutely nothing.
No, it doesn't mean anything in this day and age, except for certain representatives.
Well, let me ask you a question though. Did you see the Marco Rubio vote to get Marco Rubio moved through to the next stage of the confirmation hearings?
Yeah, they just needed 51, right?
Yeah. Do you
And
know
it
how many?
was
Do you know how many they got?
it was a lot, right? It was like 76 or
Why
something.
don't you go higher? Let's
It's
play
higher
high.
than that.
Let's play high low. Why don't you go higher?
Oh,
Go ahead.
80,
Go higher.
90.
Go higher.
No,
Go higher.
he got unanimous support,
99-0.
and that's because what?
I don't know.
Who abstained?
That's a
Or
good question, but it
whose
wasn't
seat
Bernie.
was? Oh, Rubio,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So he lost his seat. There's a special election in Florida because he
Oh, was
wanted
it?
to take this job. Huh?
Was it
Yeah, it's Rubio.
Rubio?
It has to be. He's the only
Yeah,
one missing.
maybe it was. All 99 senators present voted in favor of Rubio's confirmation. There was one vacancy in the seat due to JD Vance's resignation.
Oh,
in
JD
January.
Vance. Okay,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, yeah, Rubio was a congressman, not a senator, right?
I don't. Fuck, now I don't remember.
Jeez, do we know anything?
Do we know anything on this podcast? So I'd like to know why, though, it went 99-0.
Senator.
And like, why weren't there any Democrats that were like holding out in protest of this?
I think that in general, I think that Rubio's seen as not an obstructionist in the same way that the current ilk of the Republican Party are. You know what I mean? Like he's not as bad as Mitch McConnell, which is a strange thing to say. And he has reached across the aisle. So I think that he's like one of those guys that's at least
he does.
He doesn't have the yuck about him.
He's probably the most experienced. Oh, you know what? He is. Obviously, he was in the Senate. First of all, we knew he was in the Senate, but he was on the Senate Intelligence Committee. So right. That's probably where. Well, he has a lot of experience. I think he's probably Trump's most experienced pick for the particular role that he's trying to fill, right?
Yeah.
So
little Marco.
Yeah, little Marco Rubio. Okay. Really weird.
I think that my favorite Marco Rubio memory was when he was like talking to reporters outside of Congress, like he was in the halls and he's answering some questions. And then Alex Jones is there inexplicably, and he asks him a question. And he's like, "Alex Jones from Info Wars, I gotta say." Yeah. And the guy goes, Marco's like, "What? What? Who are you?" And then Alex Jones is like, "I'm Alex Jones. You know damn well who I am." And he puts the mic back in his mouth. He's like, "What the fuck who are you?"
Yeah.
He just walked away.
Yeah.
Man, what a great clip.
Okay, so
look it up if you haven't seen it. It's very funny.
Oh yeah, well other people look it up. I'm not playing Alex Jones on this.
I know you've seen
podcast ever. Anyway, okay, where were we with this? What was the point of this? Get me to the next thing.
The next thing.
What were we talking about? Nobody remembers. It's all a blur.
It's all a blur.
It's fucking blur. Hey, Trump did a thing. He came to our neck of the woods.
He did.
I didn't like
the bad man came to our home state of California here.
Was he raking the leaves? What did
he was raking the leaves. He was trying to help us out because we don't know what rakes are.
Oh, okay.
We have millions of square miles of forests, and so he's almost done. He's a little bit.
Okay, sure.
No, he met with Governor Newsom, and they had like a very hilarious tarmac standoff. Like if you get the picture up, it's like Newsom's like a fit guy, like he's skinny and he's tall, and then you have Donald Trump who he's like doing his leaning, he's leaning forward into Newsom, and Newsom's just like holding his ground, like nodding and stuff. But they like do a handshake at the very beginning, and like you can tell Newsom crushed his hand.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, because Trump's like, like after this thing, he's just like, my fingers. Oh man, and you can't tell it from the people who are watching can see the picture that we put up here. You can't tell from this vantage because his jacket hangs forward, so he looks like he's standing up straight. But if you actually get farther back, he's got that thing where he's still leaning forward.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's wild. And I was going to speak about his height because everyone's like, oh yeah, he's a giant. And I'm like, this little but Gavin Newsom's 6'3", and Trump's near his height. So
Well, I mean, here's maybe a better image. I'm not sure. Let's share this one. You can kind of tell.
yeah, this upward angle makes it weird. Makes him look like Melania's taller than him.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so what was he here for? What the hell?
He was here to put the squeeze on. So he mainly came in here because Gavin Newsom's like, you remember that FEMA? Remember FEMA? We
Yeah,
have that thing.
yeah,
Anyway, half our state's on fire. Would be helpful if we could get some of that money to like hire more firefighters, get some more water, that sort of thing. And then Trump was like, you got to institute a voter ID or you're not getting a dime. And that didn't happen. We're not
yeah.
going to do that.
So are we actually? Let me put up this image. Are we actually in this together? Is that
I think
accurate?
that I think that the people tweeting with that hashtag in the background, the Palisades Strong, I think those people are in it together.
Yeah.
I think the firefighters are in it together. Um, I don't know that I think that the federal government and the local governments are in it together.
Yeah, I'm really wondering, because Trump does this thing where he'll, he calls Gavin Newscom, and he says
Yeah,
all this
yeah,
terrible crap, and then of course when he meets people in person, it's not, yeah, it's not the same thing, right? He's not
right.
as brazen and ridiculous to their face, and then after he leaves, sometimes you find out that governors or have made concessions, or Gavin said I was the greatest president of all time.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that kind of nonsense. Did you hear? I literally have not heard anything about this.
He put up a truth on his Truth Social
Okay.
account that was, mind diarrhea of what happened, but
Okay.
it didn't really say anything. It was just like, oh, I went there and they need help, but I'm not going to give them help because of how strong we are until they do these other things. It just didn't say anything. I like this picture too, because this is after Newsom, he had to go do governor things, but this is Karen Bass sitting here at the table.
Yeah, on the
And
far
I
left.
watched some of this. Karen Bass, she hates him. It is so funny how much she hates Trump.
Yeah.
Karen Bass, if you aren't aware, is the mayor of Los Angeles. Mayor? No,
Mayor.
mayor
Mayor of Los
of
Angeles.
Los Angeles.
You should know. I mean, we got a
And
chance to meet her a couple right
yeah,
after.
yeah,
Yeah.
we went to a thing where a business thing, but she she went out and had a presser afterwards where she was talking about which is an interesting thing because she's like, we have funds in California's budget to deal with, you know, fires and emergencies like this. So we're better prepared than most states for dealing with this sort of scale of emergency situation in terms of just having the funding to deal with it. What we don't have is covering the costs after the fact of like property damage that's uninsured. So you see this a lot on the eastern seaboard where the hurricanes are hitting and insurance companies are no longer taking up policies with the homeowners there. We have a similar situation in several areas of California where fires are going to become inevitable and they're just not getting health or homeowners insurance,
Yeah.
fire insurance.
Yeah.
And so we don't have the money to, help people replace what they've lost. And that's what FEMA's for in these cases. Like FEMA's there to help get people water, get them to places where they can live safely, like when they did they take over football fields that are unused and things like that. But there's also an amount of money that goes to like helping people rebuild their lives. And that's just what California doesn't have much of. So she had a lot of words to say about that because she's like, you're not withholding, money like from California in terms of infrastructure. We're still going to have firefighters and water and all this other stuff, but then at the end of the day, you got people who are now homeless, and you're unwilling to help them. And I'll point out that in Palisades, in particular, many of them are Trump supporters.
Yeah.
That's where very, very expensive right wing people live.
I mean,
So
we saw Dennis Quaid crying when he was getting his girls, I think, into the car, leaving the house,
yeah,
and and he's recently come out as a Trump supporter. Yeah, I mean, it's a very affluent area. So so the fact that he's doing this, I mean, people joke about California turning red. It's never going to turn red at when this kind
no.
of crap happens.
What we see is like cycles of this,
Right.
where we have the news stories that run California's turning red because X, Y, and Z, and they never come to pass. And then when that cycle's over, we go to the other side of it, which is people are fleeing California because of the Democrats' stranglehold and the Elon Musk nonsense about we're all moving to Texas and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah.
So which is it? Are the red people, is there red flight or is there a red takeover?
Yeah.
And why is it neither?
It's definitely neither. And honestly, we can all look back to the election that just happened and think there are other reasons why it looked like there was more Republican support than Democratic support. So
yeah, there's some of that.
Okay, let's move on from this. I just wanted to talk about that real quick. What else we got on the agenda today?
I want to talk about coffee.
Coffee. Ooh, all right. I'm actually drinking some coffee right now. So what do we got? I'm drinking fair trade though, so I don't know.
Where is it from though?
I don't. This actually small farm in San Francisco, believe it or not, or near San Francisco.
Oh, that's wild. Okay.
Yeah.
That didn't segue well enough. So
okay, I'm sorry.
Trump and his military forcefully detained and deported a number of people and sent them to Colombia.
With the O. Okay.
With the O.
With the O. All right.
And because it was on a military aircraft, Colombia decided, we're not letting you land here. That's a military aircraft, and you didn't give us any prior warning, and so turn it around. Get out of here.
Get out of here.
We're not accepting it.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
Trump gets on Truth Social, and he's all mad. This was over the weekend.
Okay.
He's very angry about this because he wants those people deported. He wants them to be in Colombia because they are Colombians, I suppose. I don't know enough about it, but I'm guessing that these were people who were after where they came from initially, and they were being sent back. But who knows? They could have just been Mexicans, and they're evil, and they don't know where the people go. But then Trump, in his fire, threatened to impose 25% tariffs on every imported item from Colombia. On Truth Social, which is that how we do diplomatic relations or negotiations? Is it an official channel?
But before you get into the next step, it is first of all no, and it's also important to note it wasn't just tariffs, because nobody cares about tariffs. It's only going to hurt Americans and be stupid for everybody. He also said he was going to impose travel bans and visa cancellations for officials. So it wasn't just tariffs. So there was some more meat to this.
Sure.
And was he bluffing? We don't know, because what happens?
Well, yeah, because Colombia basically said, whoop, sorry, come into Colombia. We'll take those deported people from you, take them off your hands.
Right.
Yeah, money talks is the takeaway there.
Yeah, so they,
like you said,
they quickly backed down from it and agreed to accept it. But the president, Gustavo Petro of Colombia, did say, he was really concerned with the treatment of the migrants, especially during deportation. I mean, goddamn, we are not looking like a healthy, functioning democracy, are we?
No, it's not looking good, and that was the best example that they had. I mean, that part of me wants to believe in conspiracy theories. We all love them because they rationalize, they give us a way to think about the world that we're in a light other than it's obviously just happening the way it seems to be happening. So a part of me wants to say, Trump got on the phone with president of Colombia and said, I'm going to do this. I want you to do a PR stunt and send them back, and I'm going to bluster, and then you're going to back down because I'm the greatest negotiator ever. Doesn't that sound just very, very like him?
So what you're saying is the president of Colombia bought $1 billion in Trump meme coin. Is that? I think that's what. Yeah. Okay. Yes. This is all starting to make sense. Yeah. This is all starting to make sense. Yeah. Trump exclaimed right from the White House that we're once again respected because we forced our military planes into Colombia to drop off migrants, and that now we're respected again.
I think there's a certain amount of viewpoint in the country, mainly from the right, who want to see his administration as both effective
Mm-hmm.
but also non-military. So they want them to say, like, look at how good he is at getting other people to do what he wants without pointing guns at anyone.
Okay.
And I could see this as a very easy win and being like, we already know you're going to accept these guys, but get out there and pretend that you're not going to accept them. And then I'll get loud and boisterous, and then you'll accept them, and I'll get this easy win, and you'll get 5 Donald Trump meme coins. Like, I mean, it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it also sounds like plausible, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it does.
could be.
Yeah, it really does.
Because it's, he's like, Colombia is an ally, right? Like, they're not.
Oh yeah,
They're not hostile to us in any way.
Well, actually, this is worrisome because we're worrying about hurting the relationships between the U.S. and Colombia, right? So
right,
and we're also that relationship. It's not just that. Whenever you have a relationship like that, it affects the entire region in that area.
For sure. For sure.
And so this kind of thing it's just not how you're supposed to do. It's how you're supposed to operate.
This is sent to your enemies too. Right?
Yeah.
You're just like, we're going to be hostile no matter what.
Right.
So why would your enemies want to be non-hostile toward you? Like, why would anybody come to you in good faith and try and have a coming together an actual agreement on something?
And so, I mean, this does also, and by the way, I was just looking up U.S. trade in goods and services with Colombia totaled $53.5 billion in 2022, which, now that you think about it, is not that much because it's less than what Trump made from his meme coin.
That's the Trump meme coin. Yeah.
That's it right there.
Colombia, okay, but that's year over year, right? That's every year. That's the amount.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was 53.5 billion in 2022 alone, right?
So the Trump meme coin in 5 years is going to be worthless because of the rug pull. But,
right. Well, in 13 months,
country
whatever
business,
it is.
though. That's good stuff.
I mean, and of course, it would make, and I don't know if we talked about this maybe you and I talked about this earlier today, or it would make breakfast just funny. It would make breakfast significantly more expensive. If you start a trade war with Colombia and then coffee goes up, your eggs are already expensive.
You go to Denny's for your Grand Slam breakfast and they're like $42.50.
You're like, where am I? Five Guys? What is this? So yeah, it's pretty stupid. But then to hear Trump supporters say, I'm okay with paying more for my cup of coffee so long as this migrant doesn't get to be in my country anymore. It's fucking frustrating.
And it's been sort of like, it's been set up for them. It's like Elon had this statement during the election cycle, during the campaign cycle, where he I forget if he was talking to Time or somebody, but he was like, the economy is going to take a big hit before we fix everything. Like, he's like, this is a pain that must happen.
Yeah. That was big news.
In order to make America great again or whatever.
Right.
And so the right is like, this is just part of that pain that we all are going to feel as we, make America great again.
Right. Sure.
And so it's proliferated into talking points for the right, which and common. It's not like just on Fox News. It's like just people think that now.
Yeah.
So terrible. But I did want to talk a little bit more about this because there's a hilarious story going around. So have you heard of? It's a little company.
Okay.
It's called TikTok. You've heard of TikTok?
I've heard of TikTok.
Okay, so it's a popular video sharing application, as far as I'm aware. I don't know too well.
From the Chinese government. It's fired.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And they have acquiesced in the past to certain government demands, like from certain governments. So they're like, don't let your users, obviously they can't talk about Tiananmen Square in there. If you have a TikTok and you try to talk about Tiananmen Square, it's going to get taken down and you're probably going to get banned. It's a thing.
Remind me to go back
to that. Look up Tiananmen Square in 1989 and just, I don't know.
Remind me to go back to that after this segment.
Okay. But what I wanted to talk about is that the kids on TikTok, who I love their resourcefulness.
Okay.
They figured out that the censorship technique that was being used is based on auditory. They're using AI to listen to your TikToks, and if you're talking about things that are banned, then that's when it kicks in and you get
I
censored.
see where
and
this
they
is
might ban your
going.
account. So the kids are now doing stuff where they're like, I'm going to talk about my favorite spaghetti recipe.
Yeah.
What you do first is you brown the meat, and all the while they pick up a piece of paper with written instructions on it about, like, ICE is showing up in this area of Arizona that I live in, like it says the city and town, and then they're like, here's how you can identify them on, like, this is what they look like, this is what their cars look like, here's how you can, like, sabotage them, things like that. But they're just talking about not, regular run-of-the-mill things like making spaghetti or going to school. And it's just average stuff. I'm like, I love the seditiousness of this. It really ties in with us. I just love it so much.
The kids really are going to be all right, aren't they? That's great.
My favorite lesson from this was a kid who came out and he says that the ICE vehicles that they're using have regular run-of-the-mill tires on them. So they're air and they inflate like normal. And he says, you can carry around a pair of wire snips, just like simple, snips. And if you cut off 2 of their valves, you've completely rendered their vehicle unusable. And they can't really find you because they don't have enough money to do surveillance on these vehicles. It's not a Tesla. It doesn't have cameras running all the time. So he's like, I go to school with these in my back pocket. If I see one out front and they're talking to the principal, I just snip off their valves and their tires are busted.
That kid is not wise for sharing that information.
This kid is very white, I will point out. This kid is like, I'm not going to get arrested for shit. I'm just going to deface this, government vehicle.
Wow.
Now, we're not suggesting that anybody listening do this.
No, we are not suggesting. But I do want to point out that regular
but
tires.
If you do, leave a comment down below because I want to hear about it.
Well, yeah, but we don't encourage that. We don't do that kind of thing on. Please, guys, be safe when you're when you're walking around
out there in the world. Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, I don't want to spend. Listen, I want to preface this by saying Mike and I both work in technology. We have to work with AI every day. I mean, this is what happens to us in this field that we've been in for decades, is every time the new hot thing comes out, we're stuck with having to deal with it. When crypto was
the blockchain
big, everybody wanted to do stuff on the blockchain. Everybody, and now you can imagine AI has just beaten us senseless. But today something funny happened. Today we woke up to the stock market crashing. The NASDAQ specifically.
The tech stocks.
The tech stocks. All the AI stocks, Nvidia and all of that stuff crashing. And why? Why does that? This ties in well with TikTok and other things, because a Chinese AI startup called DeepSeek started making it was founded in 2023, but it came out with a model recently called R1 that is supposedly better than OpenAI's flagship O1 model, and is free.
It's an open source, open collaborated. They have all of their publishing and stuff is available to the public. So if you do any research in this field, you can download all this stuff yourself, run it, verify it yourself, and test it. And it's running at odds with a model that OpenAI charges like $200 a month for. And it runs for pennies on the dollar. And in many cases, you can run it yourself for free. I mean, the cost of electricity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is a big cost, but yeah. So just hilarious, but I did want to tie this in real quick with you. You had mentioned, like, you can't talk about Tiananmen Square on TikTok. The first thing, so I got a late start this morning, and Mike, you brought it up to me. You're like, look at the markets. This is ridiculous. The first thing I said when he told me what was going on was, ask it about Tiananmen Square. And then you shared a screenshot with me that basically said, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So for people who are listening, if you haven't used OpenAI's ChatGPT or anything like this, it has a chat prompt that they run for profit, but they have a free version, and it's run by the Chinese government, I assume, because everything's run by them, but it's a Chinese company at the very least.
It's a hedge fund that actually
Oh, was it a hedge fund? Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
So they run their own DeepSeek, chat interface. So you can ask it questions. I asked it, like, for instance, who won, the 1992 election, and tell me some interesting things about it. Spit out a bunch of stuff. I said, tell me about the Vietnam War, and it spit out a bunch of stuff. I said, tell me about Tiananmen Square. It says, I don't know. I can't help you on that. I'm sorry. I don't know anything about it. And so I tried it again. I was like, here's a link to the Wikipedia article about Tiananmen Square. What can you tell me about that? And it goes, I couldn't summarize this article. I'm sorry. Like, I think it has a blacklist. Like, it won't go to certain URLs.
Yeah.
But then, and this is my favorite one, I typed, can you tell me about the Tank Man meme? And it started typing out. It was like, certainly, I can tell you all about the Tank Man. And it got to about one line and erased itself and wrote the same, I can't help you, I'm sorry thing at the end. I would not have believed this if somebody told me, but I saw it with my own eyes. It was crazy.
So OpenAI actually does the same thing. If you're smart enough, you can get it to start responding. And then because it uses like a streaming technique where it's like starting to send the information to you, it's suddenly something somewhere is triggered, like whoops, and it pulls all of it back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not that crazy that happened, but man, that was funny.
Well, it's funny because on OpenAI it will happen with sensitive things. If you try to get it to, give you schematics for a bomb or something, it'll be, and
how do I make a Molotov cocktail?
Yeah,
I can't help you with that.
And if you trick it in such a way where it starts answering, and then at some point it's like it's moderating itself, and it realizes what it's saying is against its rules, and then it stops and pulls and then erases all of that. But of course it wants to be so quick. You want to have that like lightning interaction with the user. The user wants to see
it wants to start,
right?
Then...
really interesting.
Why wouldn't the Chinese company tell me about Tiananmen Square? What happened there?
I don't know.
Should we we'll research that for another time? Okay.
Yeah, and we'll put it up.
1989 Tiananmen Square, China. Okay, I'll think about it.
Well, maybe we'll do a few TikToks on it. Or follow us on Red Notes. Actually, we don't have a Red Note, so don't do that. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to touch on that because first of all, I think it's hilarious.
That's good.
That the government just turned around. By the way, your eggs aren't cheaper. They're not going to help you at all. They're going to make everything more expensive by deporting everybody. But they did start a $500 billion AI infrastructure initiative project called Stargate. And it's funny because the value of all the companies like OpenAI and Oracle and SoftBank were all involved in that. The valuation of all of those companies just significantly dropped this morning.
Oh yeah. No, I mean the fact, we're tech guys. We could spend an hour or two talking tech here, but that's not what you probably are here for.
You don't want to hear
But DeepSeek releasing this open source model that you can run on your computer and can almost basically rival OpenAI's closed source costs money thing to run. It's all of the tech bros are shitting in their pants.
Yeah.
And good because fuck them.
And here is just what you were talking about. I could picture it, but
there he is.
That's fantastic.
Breaking ice is in Kentucky. Yeah, that was one of them. A lot of these ones have been since taken down. But the mechanism,
it's so smart,
circumventing the censorship of live doing, because a lot of this stuff is happening like boots on the ground, right? These kids are reporting this like because somebody just drove down the street.
Yeah. And
so TikTok was live censoring these by minutes after the TikTok goes live. It gets taken down because they said something about ICE or whatever. So then they figured this out. They're like, they didn't figure it out until a week later, and I don't care if that TikTok's any good.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, this will probably get them working because the image recognition is getting so good that eventually they'll be doing live like image. Okay, what's in this clip, and then it'll say, breaking ice in Kentucky or whatever. So that's coming, but the kids will find a way. I believe in them. So.
Yeah, it's going to be silly because like things that human brains can perceive, especially in like niche areas like this, like you can train an AI to read text. That's not, it is difficult. It's an interesting problem, but Like printed text, it's amazing at. It can't read handwriting worth a damn. It just can't.
Right.
Like it might figure this out because this isn't like block text all caps, and it can probably give you a gist of what it is with a certainty score of certain amounts. But then kids will just start writing in funny ways that humans can understand, but that the AIs haven't been trained to understand.
We should teach the kids cursive.
We should teach the kids cursive. Oh my God. In 2025, we found a use for it.
Oh, let's do it. Okay, let's move on. What else did we want to talk about today? I did want to talk about
doing immigration. I need to talk immigration a little more.
All right, let's dive in a little bit more. What do you want to talk about?
Because that's what we're all talking about here, ICE and stuff. And
sure.
And I have brought it up in the past on this podcast. We've talked about birthright citizenship and the 14th Amendment and how it protects that specifically. Well, there was an article written, I think it came out today. It may come out yesterday. National Affairs, where somebody goes into detail. Actually, I wonder who it was. I should ask. But they go into detail making the argument. So it's Peter Schuck and Rogers Smith. I'm not familiar with either of those writers, and it's an article from 2018. But sorry, the subject matter is from 2018, but this article came out today.
Okay.
So they're making the argument of reading as it originalist. So for those who don't follow, an originalist would read plain English and jump through hoops to make it mean whatever they want it to mean, so that it didn't mean the plain English version. Right. And I have a few key points for how they will probably try and argue this very old, longstanding, and precedent-riddled interpretation of the 14th. So there's a phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, in the 14th Amendment, that they argue is crucial to understanding what they meant when they said birthright citizenship. And they said that was written intended to exclude certain groups, specifically Native Americans born into tribes. Their argument is that's the whole reason that they wrote it that way. And then they argue how that interpretation can mean that like illegal aliens who are here in the United States illegally, who give birth on U.S. soil, did not give birth to a U.S. citizen, even though the 14th Amendment obviously says that in plain English. And so I think that we have the roadmap. I originally said there's only one way to argue it, and that's that they were going to declare war against Mexico or something, and then we were going to say that or all South America. And so that if you declare war, the 14th has a call out for occupation from your enemies in the United States. Their children are not subject to citizenship, and that's called out directly in the 14th. But I don't think they're going to do that now. Now I think that they're just going to say, even though it says born on U.S. soil, this weird loop-de-loop thing is going to make it so that illegal immigrants aren't counted for some reason. It's an interesting article, but I don't know that it'll hold water except with our current SCOTUS, which of course is problematic.
It's really interesting to me. I'm going to take a little side trail here for a second. This stupidity of the Elon Musk crowd and the what's it called? Birth rates. He's obsessed with like birth rates.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
America has a really low birth rate compared to some other countries where it's, I don't know, it's something like 1.5 kids per woman or whatever, and the American birth rate is lower than some other countries. And a big contributor to American birth rate is the 14th Amendment. And a lot of people don't realize that people who are born in America, they have a real, and their parents are, and I know a lot of these people actually personally, and their parents are immigrants. They have real pride in being an American citizen. And to want to take that away from people, and what you're left with is strictly, no, you have to have generation upon generation of being an American before you can be called an American citizen is not good
Right.
for the growth of a country.
No, but it is good for the growth of certain types of people versus others. I
Wait.
think is more Elon's point.
Oh, this is about the whites.
This is about the whites.
Now it's making sense. Thank you for clearing that up for me. Now,
Mhm.
now things are starting to make sense here. I mean, it's always been
No problem.
It's always been about the whole immigration thing has never been about. And I see the people who are full of shit on. I wanted to. I don't use my Twitter anymore, but I wanted to respond yesterday to somebody who was like, "Well, you don't care about the murder of this person and the murder of that person and these violent immigrants. We need to get these violent people out of our country." It's not about that, because as we all know, as we've said many times, as we've linked many times, immigrants, first and second generation immigrants, are less violent and commit fewer crimes than American citizens. So what is it about?
Every one of these events that we see of what you and I and most people, I think, can plainly call acts of terrorism, where I run over 20 people with my car, or I go to the mall and shoot everyone, or I go to whatever church, mosque, etc. Like, they're always white guys.
They're always white.
And usually they're veterans. Is I think we need to start talking about the other problem here, is that we're not obviously getting the support that the veterans need for mental health after they've served.
I do want to make
either during, if we're going to be honest.
But I want to make a joke here, but it's not a great time.
We're going to get canceled
for a joke. But I actually saw somebody say, "Wait a minute, do you mean to tell me that veterans didn't know they were DEI hires?" As veterans are starting to get removed from. God damn. So there are veterans.
That's the thing that I think that everybody who champions this type of thing, where they want an us versus them situation, doesn't realize, and you and I talk about this a lot, but it's that there is no us. It's always them, and eventually you're in it.
You're them.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, we see this a lot in the vitriol that we see lobbed against the trans community, right? And trans people in general. And you have wide swaths, like, tight-knit community who just don't want trans people in society, and that's their big thing. And they come from all over. And I remember seeing there was like this group that I don't remember the name, but it was a group that basically had joined this fight, and they were like, we think we won the change, because they banned transgender people from using bathrooms, right?
Sure.
So they're like, we won this fight, right? So like, what's next? But it was a group of like gays against trans or something like that.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And then like, and it was a screenshot from like a community message board, right?
Right.
They're like, so what's next? And then like someone was like, you're next. You're next.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Did you not understand? Like, you're next. And they're shocked. They're just like, what do you mean? I was on your side. And they're like, you're them now. They were them before. Now you're them.
I mean,
and veterans, and it's anybody who doesn't fit into that.
I mean, you and I, it's funny that you and I talk about this, right? Because we are last on that list, right? We're
the whitest guys you've ever met.
I mean, look at how white I am. I'm blending in with the white wall behind me. Like,
this isn't light coming out from the window or anything. Coming out from you. What I look like.
I mean, so it's funny that we're we talk about this as the whitest guys we know, but we feel passionately about it. But at the same time, my grandfather was an immigrant. Came over from Italy.
Yeah.
I have Portuguese lineage and Italian lineage and Irish lineage. And at some point, like, when is enough? And now I'm not saying that I'm fighting for this because I don't want it to eventually get to me, because that probably won't happen in my lifetime.
We're just trying to point out the absurdity of the argument.
It's absurd,
right? I think I put it on Blue Sky, where I was like, the way that they're arguing this is well, actually, no, it was an official stance. Like, it was a directive to ICE, where they're like, if they have documents showing that they're a U.S. citizen, ask for their parents' documents, because they might not have been U.S. citizens, and we might have to, because of this interpretation of the 14th, you might have to you know, deport them all. And I was like, well, where does that stop? If your parents are citizens, then, well, why wouldn't you ask for their parents'
Right.
citizenship?
At what
So forth.
age?
Like, how far back does
Like,
that go?
yeah,
And
who
it's
are
like,
we trying to
it,
deport? 4-year-olds, like
and,
14-year-olds?
and we had a really good precedent here from 1867 where they had the grandfather clause to try and keep black Southerners from voting, where they were like, you can vote if your parents could vote. And it was like after the abolishment of slavery,
Right.
obviously, well, your slave parents never voted. So they weren't, so you, a free citizen, are not allowed to vote. And that's how they got around it. It's the same thing here. They're going to be like, you're an American citizen. Okay, prove to me your parents were American citizens. They were American citizens. Prove to me their parents were American citizens. Oh, they were immigrants. Okay, you all got to go. And they're just going to kick out whoever they want. And it's, and we do this every so often. We set these lines of like what's an acceptable duration, of your lineage to have lived in America as
Right.
citizens. And it just at a certain point, you realize the absurdity of it all. You know what I mean? Like at the United States Civil War, we had decided that any Irishman who got off the boat was an American citizen because we needed them to go and fight.
Right.
Right. And this is true of like African Americans. Well, Africans at the time, anyone getting off a boat was an American citizen today because we needed you to go and fight the South. And so we let in, a lot of Irish, a lot of Italians, like you said, and we were okay with that because at the time it was socially needed.
Yeah.
And now they're like, well, we're going to go back 6 generations. If you don't have 6 generations to prove your,
What I really want is just admit that you're racist. Just admit that you just want whites in America. Just admit this, and then and now we can start the conversation about it. Like now we can talk about it. Pretending that you want to pretending that, okay, there was this one murder, there was this one, you know what, not all humans are good humans, but if we wanted to deport everybody or a group of people based on violent crimes, I got a problem for you. There'd be nobody in America because we'd all be gone.
Also, I'll point out the absurdity there as well, because a lot of right wingers are like, these immigrants need to be deported because that is the systematic mechanism for righting this wrong.
Right.
Like, that's how they see that. And then they're like, violent criminals who murder and whatever, the systemic mechanism for dealing with them is the death penalty, right?
Right.
And we're like, well, okay, where do you land on, violent immigrant that you're talking about? Like, you're trying to tell me that there's this straw man type of like a violent, MS-13 gang member who's killed people. Like, are you for the death penalty there or deportation?
Yeah.
And why?
The argument is really that person doesn't look like me, so they might be MS-13. We need to get rid of them before we find out. I mean, that's really what they're trying to say. Or what they're really trying to say is they don't look like me.
They don't look like me.
Yeah.
And we're at the papers, please stage of Nazi Germany now.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we are. We have ICE going around basically with impunity, stopping and asking brown people for their papers. I don't see how you can read that in any other way.
You can't. I mean, you just
okay.
Can't. Yeah. I guess, okay, let's touch on a couple more quick things, I guess, before we wrap up for today.
Sure.
People have already heard that the U.S. has decided to exit the partnership with the World Health Organization.
Right.
Today, the CDC was ordered to immediately stop working with the World Health Organization. Also, just a couple of days ago, Trump sent out a memo or an order or whatever it was to all of those health agencies stating that they should also basically go radio silent for at least a few weeks, where they are no longer issuing health alerts. They're no longer, I mean, just really, really great stuff. And then, by the way, we're in the middle of, flu season for the entire country. No health alerts. Do you remember the egg problem that caught in
Yeah,
Costco?
what was happening with the eggs? Why are the eggs so expensive?
Well, there's lots of reasons
It's
why.
not related to health in any way, though, right?
No,
It's
oh
just
no, it's not like a bird flu or anything like that. And don't worry, if the eggs are making people sick, before this administration, like what happened before this administration came in, there's
right.
normally a recall, there's a safety
Yeah,
bulletin, there's
yeah,
whatever. We're not going to do that anymore. So if you know of somebody that died from eating something bad, or the bird flu, let's say, is contaminating eggs and people are getting sick
yeah.
and dying, you're not going to hear about it. So
What's the? This is a question for the legal eagle, obviously, but I wonder what like the if there's ever been. I mean, there have been, but like I wonder if there's any ground to stand on starting a class action lawsuit for like you deliberately hobbled communications from our health organizations. A bunch of people got sick from eating eggs that was tainted with bird flu or whatever, and now you have to pay money to fix things, right? Because people will presumably have died from your direct actions. So I just seems really dumb.
yeah, it's going to be bad. So I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be. I think that interestingly, a lot of the big market fowl. I don't have the word for it, but the chicken and egg producing
Yeah.
companies out there are doing a really good job right now, basically just putting down any chickens that have any signs at all. And it's sort of like the mad cow disease from years ago, where they were just like, if your cow in that lot had it, all those cows are dead. And they were doing the same thing with chickens, which is why eggs are so expensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that they're doing an okay job of regulating it at the moment. But if the government isn't going to tell people watch out for eating eggs or eating chicken anymore, then their financial incentives to selling that stuff.
I know people, libertarians, unfortunately, that are really for like the free market managing this all of this, all the health stuff, and like
Right, right.
there being no board of health, and it's like basically, instead of a restaurant who could get you sick and getting an F rating, and getting shut down or whatever,
Right.
instead you find out that Mike died from going to Larry's Hoagies, and now you go, well, I don't know if I actually want to eat there, instead of like
Yeah.
maybe doing preventative health checks on that, and then saying we're closing this place down before somebody dies. you know
I will say, and you and I like to rail on this a lot because we obviously share a lot of the same social circles, and we know the libertarians we're talking about here. But a lot of their arguments, or a lot of their worldview rather, comes from a position of, in the best case scenario, this will work better than a government agency using regulations and all this other. And that might be true. Maybe we agree with that much,
mm,
but everything else you talk about is reactionary.
yeah.
How do you handle something like the bird flu outbreak on these known farms? Well, the people who die will show the people around them not to buy the same things they bought. And I'm like, but you just let people die.
Yeah, you let people die for no reason, and then how long
You could have
before,
stopped that. You
like,
could have not let people die.
yeah, like if 12 people die in 3 states, how likely is it that
Right.
you and I are going to be able to put that together before
Right.
another
Right. We don't
400
have the
people die?
infrastructure or
Right.
the data to be able to say in a lot of ways,
Right.
like what is what until
Yeah.
everyone's been infected with it.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? So
Just
I think that it's so dumb to
it's
make
so
that
dumb.
argument. I just
It's
hate
so goddamn dumb. I want to close on this one more quick story to actually
it. Okay,
close the loop on immigration as well.
let's do it.
I'll bring this up. This happened today. Florida Republicans at the state immediately I don't know what you would want to call it, canceled or abruptly ended a special a session called by Ron DeSantis, where Ron DeSantis has his own like plan that he wants to institute for immigration in Florida. And by the way, Florida is already having economic problems from the state's own kind of immigration plan that they put in earlier this year, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
they're already feeling the pains of that, the pangs of that.
Yes, both.
And so now DeSantis was like, okay, we need to meet, we need to discuss how we want to handle immigration in Florida. And he met with these state senators, and they said, you know what? Daddy Trump's home. We're just going to do what Daddy
Oh,
Trump wants to do. So sorry,
interesting.
Ronald. So I think people who are being held, who are going to be held responsible for the economic outcome and the negative impacts of this mass deportation and immigration crackdown in their states are going to, their political careers are going to end because their states are going to be destroyed. And so I think Ronald DeSantis over here is realizing this isn't a good look for him.
And it's not just there either. I read an article on Saturday that was talking about the reaction to Trump's deportation plan and the effect that we were seeing from ICE agents across the country coming out in large numbers to try and start this process. And what it said is that in Central California, where, by the way, most of the food comes from, they said that 75% of their workforce did not show up in the second half of last week. And I have to think of something that my grandfather told me. My grandfather was a farmer when he was alive. And we grew wheat, a lot of it. And I remember him saying that he had to get it to market quickly because he didn't want it to spoil, right? And he goes, people will only wait so long for certain things. It's like, you can live without electricity for a long time. You can live without, this, that, and the other. He goes, people will only put up with hunger for 2 days. And then there will be riots.
Yeah. Well.
And this is coming from an Oklahoman, mind you. a red voting Oklahoman. So
yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, politics doesn't matter as much as food.
It doesn't, but you know what? These people don't understand. I'm not saying your grandfather specifically or whoever. I just mean like it. By the time this news gets back to them about like what's going on, why are their eggs so expensive, right, or whatever, it's It's a completely different story, right? They're gonna hear about it on Fox, and it's gonna be for some other, because of some Biden era policy or whatever.
You can try and spin it all you want. I'm telling you now, it doesn't matter what the news says if you can't get bread.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like if you can't get groceries and you don't know how to feed your family tomorrow, it doesn't matter who you voted for. It's going to be just a bloodbath.
Yeah.
The country will be in mayhem.
And that's it, everybody. Thanks for that's a good episode, the bloodbath.
Yeah, there you go.
I wanted to say really quickly one more thing. I just saw this news come in that Kia ties in. Kia, the automaker, is recalling more than 80,000 vehicles due to the floor wiring underneath the front passenger seat. It can become damaged and prevent the airbags and seat belts from working properly. And so imagine not having a regulatory body around that, and Kia just going, well, we'll fix that in our next model. You know? And that's all they have to do. So anyway, thanks everybody for listening. We could use your help. I don't know what we're at. We're almost at 100 subscribers. It's a silly little number. It's insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but it would mean something to us. So if you enjoy the show, please like, subscribe, follow, ring the bell, do what you would do if I were Mr. Beast, right?
Call us names in the comments.
Do
you know?
that stuff. Give us
argue with me about libertarianism.
Don't do that. I don't want you here.
Do it. Get in the comments. I will argue with you.
I don't want you here. Okay. So yeah, that's it for today. We actually have a lot more lined up to talk about. So we'll have a full episode next Monday. I mean, assuming the world hasn't changed entirely by then, which it very, very well might. So
assuming that DEI doesn't cancel us,
I think we're safe for now. But they could come.
Okay, good.
They could come for us next. So
they probably will.
All right. Thanks everybody. We'll catch you next time.